my sound. Okay. Make sure I'm recording. My video is on. All right. Peace and love. How y'all doing? This is ZaZa Ali. Today is Friday, October the 30th, 2020. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I am doing really well. Thank you so much for asking. Today's October 30th, 10:30. Okay. Let me see. I'm thinking about the numbers. It's a 444 day. 10, let me write it down. 10, 30, 20, 20. Yeah, 444. Okay, that's righteous. And that makes sense why I have been emphatic about getting this video done today. But anyway, peace and love. How y'all doing? I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I am doing really, 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 really well. I over the past couple of months, a lot of people have been reaching out to me like, hey, what's up with the other videos? I'm patiently waiting for the next Gods at War, etc. And I had so much stuff to get off my chest that I literally just started. I have 3 presentations that I have completed as far as, the keynote aspect of it. This one, King's Disease, which is the part 2 of Divine Judgment. And then Science as a Weapon, part 4 of The Gods Are at War, and then World War III, part 5 of The Gods Are at War. So I put them together as far as the presentations, and I'm going to, this entire weekend, sit down and put them all on video. So today, Friday, I give you King's Disease, which I hadn't even originally thought about or talked about. Just a couple of things have happened in the past couple of weeks, not only what's happening in the world and in the culture, but just some stuff that I have been observing. And, I put out Becoming a Queen, and I've been consistently, specifically talking to our daughters and talking to our women. And I said, let me sit down and have a conversation with our men. And some of this was inspired by Nas's new album, which I believe to be a classic, King's Disease. That's what inspired the title. But there's some other things that I'll get to in just a minute. But I want to let you guys know that tomorrow I'm going to sit down and put together Science as a Weapon. I'm going to talk about COVID-19, vaccinations, as well as the bigger topics and subjects that are happening that we aren't really talking about, what's kind of happening behind the scenes with the psychological warfare. The vaccination is only one tentacle of this, vehicle, so to speak. And our culture, our communities in particular, is so focused on vaccinations that we're kind of missing the Jedi mind trick. The vaccination is only one tentacle of this vehicle. So I'm going to get into all of that tomorrow. And I suspect that YouTube will take the video down, which is quite all right because I have my own website. So if they take it down, then I will go ahead and put that up on my website, and I will come and tell you guys how to get there through YouTube as well as Facebook and Instagram. So it's all good. I'm not going to sweat it any type of way because I've been trying to I haven't. I haven't really been talking about this. And those of you guys that know, I wrote the Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs 5 years ago. But I haven't really been kind of honing in on this. Number one, because our people have been completely sleep at the switch when it comes to this scientific war. And it's frustrating when you are sounding the alarm and trying to get people to listen and trying to get people to, look at things from a deeper perspective. I did so many videos, I put out so much content, and number one, I wasn't getting reciprocity as far as, the culture and the community supporting my work, which is cool. But then number two, the trolls and people, calling you a pseudoscience or questioning you or not really giving the research that I've done for the past 15 years, its full respect. Well, now here we are. So Science as a weapon, I'm going to kind of completely take the lid off, so to speak, and talk about that and talk about what I really think is happening. And I just really want to reiterate to you guys, and I'm going to really talk about this tomorrow. The vaccination is only one part of this. And it doesn't matter if Biden or Trump is in office, the agenda is going to be fulfilled. And the only way, moving into this paradigm shift now where your spiritual foundation and your spiritual acumen is what's going to be able to navigate you and guide you through what's happening, which I'm going to talk about later. Yeah, so I'll get into all of that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I have a lot to talk about today, and I put together this presentation, and I don't want to go over 2.5 hours. So I'll get to all of that. So part 4, science as a weapon, I'm going to sit down and record tomorrow, and I will post it tomorrow as well. And then part 5 of The Gods Are at War is going to be called World War III. And I will be putting that up Sunday, probably Sunday evening. I have a class, a workshop Sunday morning. So I'll probably have, I'll get that up on Sunday. All right. Because I want to get all of this off my chest. It's been weighing on me heavy. When I have something that I need to say, if I don't get it out, it's like a gnawing and a nagging in the back of my mind. So imagine if I have 3 presentations that I put together, and all of them are going to end up being around 2.5 hours. You can just imagine, you have all this information kind of floating around. I have notes everywhere. I have books everywhere. I just got to get this off of my chest. And I wanted to do it before the election on Tuesday. So Sunday, everything will be up. And then I may do a Q&A for The Gods Are at War, like to kind of close that out. The part 5, the World War III. World War III is a spiritual war, which is what I'm really going to hone in on part 5. But I may do a Q&A. I talked about it before. I know I talked about it before. This, I don't just really get online. I do, but when I do these type of presentations, I put a lot into this. I put a lot into the research. I put a lot into putting the presentations together, giving you sound, giving you image, giving you reading resources, giving you references, as well as my perspectives and opinions. And unfortunately, it's not always reciprocated from the audience. So Q&A, the live Q&A, I may still do depending on what type of support I get from you guys. My videos have gotten, these last 3 videos have gotten around 120,000 views in the past month, which I absolutely am so appreciative for, especially when you can sit down and listen to someone talk for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I know a lot of you guys are used to, people, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. And believe me, I've had a lot of people who are social media specialists tell me, you need to stop putting up the long videos, put up shorter videos, all that stuff. But I just got to get what I have to say off my chest. And which I'm doing. If you guys support my work, which I'm not just asking you to support my work because I do these videos, I'm asking you because I am putting out the type of quality content that the culture needs right now. Right. So I put out workbooks specifically so that I can have a reciprocal dialogue with the person who's working on the workbook, as well as provide information, resources, etc., to help elevate the consciousness. So it's all good. Either way, I'm giving you all of this content. And if I continue to put up this type of content on YouTube, it's all good. And if I don't, it's all good, because I have, armed you with what I feel is enough information to help you, kind of navigate the culture and what's going on. I would love to really be able to let my hair down on YouTube and provide the type of high level content and quality content that I know I'm capable of, because I haven't even really scratched the surface when it comes to what I present publicly. But this is not my job per se, you know what I'm saying? So everything I do is for free. So if my books sell at a good rate and pace, then we'll see. And if they don't, we'll see. It's all good. But I want to thank you guys for those of you guys who have purchased my workbooks. We had a little snag on Change Your Mind from Lack to Abundance, which is this workbook, 134 pages, full color. It's a beautiful book. we had a little snag on this workbook with the printer, and it took a little bit longer for them to get our most recent order out. So those of you guys who are still waiting for your order, I've sent links for you guys to get access to the ebook version in the meantime. And those workbooks will be going out really, really soon. So thank you guys for your patience. But all of the other orders have been filled. Black Matters Volume 1 is sold out. We're waiting for another copy of that. And then The Science of Self, which I'm going to talk about some stuff from this workbook shortly, is available as well. So thank you to all of you guys that have purchased my books, that have supported me over the past month, that have watched my content and found value in it. Because you found value in it, you decided to reciprocate and to show love and to support. That means everything to me. Also, for you guys that actually sit and listen to me talk for an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, I will never take for granted the fact that I can sit down in front of my laptop and express my opinions and give my perspectives on what's happening in the world, and that you guys actually value my opinion. You know what I mean? You value my energy, you value who I am and what I do. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time and your attention and your energy. It means everything to me. What else? I have a few notes here just before I get started. My birthday is coming up next week, Thursday, November the 5th, right after the election, which I'll talk about that in part 5 of The Gods at War. I'm going to really get into that and what that means in the bigger scheme of things right now. But my birthday is next Thursday, November 5th. So yes, I am taking love donations. I am, if you want my Amazon wish list, hit me up and I will send it to you. Just email me. But my Cash App is $ capital Z, lowercase a, capital Z, lowercase a, capital A, lowercase L-I. So capital Z, Z-A-Z-A-A-L-I, right? So y'all show some love, you know what I mean, and support me for my birthday. And of course, I just prefer you guys just buy my books, you know what I mean, because my name and my legacy are gonna live through my books. So, but of course, however you want to show love, whatever you send, some people send me $2, some people send me a couple $100, whatever it is that you send, I am grateful and appreciate it. Also, I know, because I'm talking about this particular subject today, King's disease, and specifying my message to men, because I've heard this redundant, kind of kickback before about I hate men or I'm a feminist. Like, listen, first of all, I have a son. And for me, because I have a son who is 17 years old, about to be 18 in June, it is very imperative for me to always be balanced in what I teach, in who I am, and my assessment of the world. So my responsibility to my son is greater than anybody watching this video. And, I really need people to understand that I am not going to disrespect his legacy as a young Black man. And eventually one day a king. He's a prince right now, but I'm raising him to be a king. But I would never disrespect my son and his legacy and his personal legend for the sake of trying to latch on to a feminist organization, or any organization for that matter. So don't play with me. I know you guys are kind of used to dealing with a certain type of mindset, a very limited perspective. We're going to talk about the 85-10-5 in just a second, right? But that's not me. Respect my craft, respect what I do, and more importantly, listen. Don't just take little tidbits of what I say and then go off on a tangent. Like, we need to really, really, really start developing and harnessing the ability to listen. Listening is is a lost art form. I'm not talking about just hearing people, because nowadays people hear stuff and it's like you wait for something to latch on to and then you automatically go into defensive mode. No, listening and hearing are two different things. So actually listening to a person, and I'm painting a picture. This is one aspect of the picture that I'm painting, but I did a full, becoming a queen was the same thing, but it was directed towards women. And I've continuously said that because I am a woman, I hold us more accountable and more responsible, because we do give birth to the generations that are to come. So I feel a heavier responsibility as a woman for the way that I conduct and carry myself. And then I also feel a heavier responsibility to speak to men, to the minds and hearts of men. And I need you guys to just get out of your feelings for a minute. And I'm not just talking to men, but whoever's listening, I need you to just get out of your feelings for a second and just hear what I'm saying and the energy that I'm conveying, and take it from the heart of who I am and the message that I'm trying to convey. No, I am not a feminist. Let me be clear. I cannot represent any organizations or allegiances that do not support the growth and development and the nurturing of my son and the sons that are coming up before us, behind us. And one of the issues that are the ongoing issues that I've had with feminism is that I do not feel that there is, number one, enough accountability and responsibility to women. The feminist organizations are way too focused on men, and there's really no emphasis on the fuckery, for lack of a better term, that is happening within the culture of women. And then number two, like, there's not enough balance as women because we give birth to both sexes. How can there not be agenda when it comes to shaping and molding the mindsets of our sons, and as well as our men? So there's that. What else did I want to say before I get started? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this, and let me share my screen. My email address real quick is info@zazaali.com if you guys want to connect with me, and I will put the link to everything in the description once I actually post this video. And let's get started here. Normally when I do a presentation, it wouldn't have, this box from Keynote around the borders, but because it gets a little tricky because Keynote will take up the whole screen, and I want to be able to move around a little bit. So it's a little bootleg how I'm running this online, but it's more convenient for me. So you guys just bear with me. I have my water here, so I'll be sipping frequently. So I know I'm going to be talking a lot. And again, I just want to reiterate, for me to sit down, for me to prepare a presentation like this, and then to sit down and, give you guys 2.5 hours of my time and my energy and my attention, it is very important that you reciprocate and that you show some love and that you support my work. So Divine Judgment, that should say part 2. This is part 2. King's Disease, ZaZaali.com is my website. And this particular subject, as well as the title, King's Disease, was inspired by Nas's most recent album, which is called King's Disease, which is an absolute classic, in my opinion. And I felt that the title was perfect for the message that I want to convey. So much love, peace to the God, Nas. I feel like this is definitely his best work. And most importantly, because he really acknowledged his own shortcomings as far as women are concerned in this album, which was really, really important, which is what the times and the conditions are requiring of all of us right now, to start moving and operating more from a heart-based frequency and not just from this linear, limited perspective that our world has been governed by. Nas, I have had a little bit of frustration with him. He's, Pac was my favorite rapper at one point in time, but as obviously he's not here with us anymore. And as I've seen Nas grow and evolve as an artist, and as a man, as a businessman, my affinity for his music and just him as a human being has definitely increased. So he is definitely my number one at this point, and I highly appreciated this work. I've been conflicted with him over time because his message when it comes to women, you know what I mean, it's been shaky. You know what I'm saying? I remember he had one of his songs, I want to say it was Smoking. he starts the song off. It says, Bishmi Allah, Il Rahman, El Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. And then at the end of the song, the last thing he says is, come here, bitch. Like, that's the last thing he says in the song. And I always, even every time I hear it, I always wonder, like, does he ever realize how contradictory that is? You know what I'm saying? And obviously he's an artist. He has the right to speak how he chooses, but I've been conflicted, over time with how he has talked about women and represented women in his music. So I feel like King's Disease, the most we can ask of, particularly artists, and I am an artist as a writer and as a creative, the best that you can ask of any of us is to be balanced. And so I feel like this was a righteous representation of the culture and where we need to be moving going forward. And peace to the God Nas, and much love for dropping a higher level of conversation when it comes to the male-female dichotomy. I am now officially a 6-time self-published author. Thank you very much. And as of today, I have put my latest workbook, Keys to Womanhood, What Every Young Lady and Woman Should Know. Why is my flashlight on my cell phone on? It is officially available for purchase on my website. So I will also put the link for that, excuse me, on my site as well. So make sure you guys go show some love. It's 110 pages. It's full color. I don't do fluff. I don't do, you know what I mean? There's a lot of fluff out here. I don't do any of that. I take my time. I research. I'm very big on graphics and color and energy vibration when it comes to my work. So Keys to Womanhood, which is down here in the middle, is my representation and offering to our daughters and to the women in order to help us to elevate the conversation and the consciousness as far as women is concerned. I'm just going to read you guys real quick what I posted on my Instagram. Keys to Womanhood, What Every Young Lady and Woman Should Know, my 4th and latest workbook, my 6th book, is a labor of love and my contribution to our daughters, mothers, and the highest potentials of womanhood. This workbook is a full color, 110-page analysis on modern culture, divine feminine consciousness, and the higher and lower self. Topics include, but are not limited to, masculine and feminine energy, the power of mind and heart synchronicity, honoring the body as sacred, social media and peer pressure, sexually transmitted diseases, hygiene and the female anatomy, sex, birth control, and abstinence, balancing chakras, the energy centers of the body, how we relate to and interact with boys and men, eating to live, self-love, and much more. So those are some of the topics that are included in the book. And here is the actual table of contents that I printed out. Becoming a Queen, It Takes a Village, Followers, The New Trend, Boys to Men, Honoring Thy Temple, and We Create What We Believe. And man, every workbook I put out, I've been really, really happy and excited about. And I think this one is taking it to another level just because it's on time. You know what I mean? Like the way that we are approaching womanhood in 2020, particularly because everyone has an audience now, right? Let me bring my screen up real quick. Everyone has an audience now. And depending on what frequency you are on, there is a leader for your frequency. That's why I always say that, the people get the leaders they deserve. So, the followers have followers now, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to up the ante. How many of our women and our daughters understand what chakras and energy centers are and how to, properly align certain aspects of your body when it comes to the energy centers and, how that applies to disease, how that applies to what's happening in your womb, how that applies to the type of birth or the type of children that you give birth to, how that applies to how you relate in your relationships. So I just really, really, really wanted to up the ante on the conversation because I get real irritated. And maybe irritated is the wrong word because I've learned how to tune this stuff out. But man, I just, as a student of history, who saw so many great women and who studied so many great women. Sorry, I keep hitting this table. Who saw so many great women that were rulers, to us getting the point where we are now, where, you know, the concubines are kind of running our culture, and, you know, all the regular women are trying to be concubines now. It's just no judgment. Maybe there's some judgment. If there is, I don't care. So this is my contribution to elevating the culture. And in the intro, I wrote a letter to all of our women, entitled "What I Wish Another Woman Had Told Me." So it's available right now. You can get your pre-order your book right now. I'm very, very excited. And those books will ship out on the first week of December. And you'll be able to get those books just in time for the holidays. So for your nieces, your aunties, your mothers, your grandmothers, I kind of touch on a lot of different subjects on a lot of different levels so that I can meet all of the women wherever they are. So get one for every woman in your family, you know what I mean? But they'll ship out first week of December, so you guys will be able to get those in time for the holidays. All right. And of course, the scientific intervention in our affairs, which I'll go into more, Science as a Weapon, and all of my other workbooks. A couple of them, I'm gonna reference some stuff in just a little bit here as far as those workbooks. If you guys don't know, I did a 2-week free web series that is available on my website. Change Your Mind from Lack to Abundance. So if you are in a space right now where you kind of need some guidance, of course I do, you know, ongoing classes and stuff, but this is a free 2-week web series. I think each class was an hour and a half. I did live Q&As. I did presentations for 9 days straight, for an hour and a half every day, and basically just taught and also engaged with the people who signed up. So if you would like to sign up for this website, I will put the link in the description as well, so you can go and watch the video. The only thing I ask is that you purchase the ebook version of Change Your Mind from Lack to Abundance, because it does complement. We have homework assignments during those classes, and that homework can be found in the Change Your Mind ebook version of the workbook. Once you purchase it, it goes right to your email, and then you can sign up for free and get started with that. My life group visioning coaching sessions, I've made some changes in my Alchemy Cipher group. I'm starting to do these coaching sessions as well as a monthly program. So if you want to get more information on that, email me, admin@zazaali.com. I haven't put it up on my website because I'm still making some changes. There's very limited space in this, because what I'm gonna do is do like a 12-month program where I keep the same 20 people, 20 max 25 people within this program, and we kind of go through this curriculum together for 12 months. So if you want to get more information about that, just email me. You can either say Alchemy Cipher or Life Visioning Group Coaching Sessions. They're no longer available for purchase on my website, because like I said, I'm changing them up and it's going to be a little bit more exclusive. So hit me up and I'll give you more information about that. All right. So let me just get a little agua real quick. And actually, I don't know why I didn't turn on my meditation music. My frequency music keeps me, hold on. California. Let's talk about Prop 22. 22 lets ad-based drivers like. All right. This is 432 hertz, and people always ask me what I'm watching on my phone. So if you guys can see that, this is 432 hertz, raised positive vibrations, deeper self-love healing, earth frequency relaxation music. I actually listen to this as I go to sleep at night. So I keep it in the background when I'm doing videos, just so that whatever topics that I'm discussing, I don't allow it to take me out of my, you know what I'm saying, my zen and my place of peace, so to speak. All right, so a man that refuses to learn from a woman is a fool. A woman with nothing to teach him, even more so. I have continuously, if my table shakes, you guys, it's just because I'm kind of moving around, swinging this chair back and forth, so just bear with me. But I have continuously been teaching over the course of the past 10 years. I spent about 3.5 years traveling across the country, um, teaching, doing lectures, presentations, also watching lectures and presentations. And I have found through those experiences, as well as through my experience online, that we just have some men that refuse to learn from women. And we also have this really weird, perverted, you know, this limited respect for women's intellectualism, masked, masked, as promoting women that appeal to the ego or the lower self of men. So just pay attention to the type of women that some of the men among us kind of uphold and the type of women that they don't, right? So it's important for me, as well as other women who are spiritual teachers, who are intellectuals of their own right, that I really need to get men to understand, particularly Black men, African men, indigenous men. We are moving into this age of Aquarius. We're actually technically already here. And we are moving into a space where the feminine attributes, the feminine perspectives, the feminine mindset. And when I say feminine, I'm not talking about female, but the feminine attributes does express itself at the highest capacity through the woman, through girls and through women. But both men and women both have masculine and female attributes. The masculine attribute expresses itself through men in its highest capacity. The feminine attribute expresses itself through women at its highest capacity. But it is important because we're in this space now where our men, and when I say our men, I mean particularly Black men, of course, but also all men have been very imbalanced because they are only or have only been nurtured and cultivated through that masculine energy, right? So I need for my brothers to understand, I and other women like me have been sent or decided to come to this planet right now for a specific reason. And part of that reason is to balance out the masculine and feminine energy and to help right this ship, meaning this planet, in the right direction. There's no question that our planet has been ruled by men. Now, depending on your time frame, your timeline, obviously we know that Europeans have been in charge specifically for the past 2,000 years. And that number is even questionable because, they were, gaining prominence in certain, I would say the last 1,000 years for sure, right? So that has shaped and molded the way that we see men, the way that we see women, and the way we interact with one another. Now I'm gonna take us down a little timeline of history, because you guys know I love history. I'm a student of history, just so that we can look at what was then and where we are now, just to put everything in context. But I need you to understand that if you are a man watching this, and it doesn't have to be me, but if you don't have any women in your cipher that you can learn from, whether it's your wife, whether it's your woman, whether it's your aunts and aunties or your mother, whether it is, whatever women in your cipher, part of that is because it's our it's our fault, right? We haven't properly prepared ourselves to be able to teach our men. That's why that second line, a woman with nothing to teach him is an even bigger fool, right? But as a man, if you have not elevated your consciousness and your state of mind to the point where you are attracting women that can teach you, that is a reflection of you and not us. That's your accountability, period. And then that's our accountability, period. Like, those are two different conversations. And what's frustrating to me is that men and women do this, where whenever we start talking about the battle of the sexes or genders or men or women, it becomes, we try to out talk each other and talk more about, well, this is what men do. Well, this is what women do. Well, I know we're like this, but women are like that. Like, we got to get out of our feelings and, stop being so soft when it comes to internal accountability. So I'm going to need for my brothers to understand that I speak with passion and I speak with authority, not because I want to rule you, not because I think that the age of Aquarius is about women ruling men. Absolutely not. Don't play with me. This is God consciousness. We're not even talking about genders at that level when we talk about this spiritual shift that's taking place. But women do serve a very important role right now as the highest attribute or expression of divine feminine energy, where because for the past 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, depending on where your marker is, years of our history, our planet has been ruled by men. So the shift means that if we've been here and we're trying to get here, that means that women have to rise in consciousness, and you're going to have to kind of humble yourself a little bit more and provide avenues and provide teaching and provide resources and provide content and information that is specifically in alignment with what I'm talking about. And it doesn't have to be about me. You can find whatever divine feminine consciousness. I absolutely love Mother Tainetta Muhammad from the Nation of Islam. She transitioned, but she is one of my greatest teachers. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing obviously was one of my greatest teachers. Dr. Abel Muhammad, Dr. Joy DeGruy. Those are the women that I listen to. Iya Omitayo. These are the women that I listen to, that I celebrate, that I humble myself to because of the level of wisdom and the divine feminine consciousnness, right? So I'm walking in their footsteps, but I'm also blazing my own trail. But I'm going to need for men to start making it a conscious effort and a conscious decision to not only learn from women, but to put women who are capable of teaching in positions of being able to do so. So the Nation of Islam in the Supreme Wisdom has an overview of the collective consciousness that says that 85% of the masses are deaf, dumb, and blind, who are easily led in the wrong direction and hard to lead in the right direction. The 85% are manipulated by 10% of the people, who are the rich slave masters or the bloodsuckers of the poor. And the 5% are the poor righteous teachers. And 5% is not about poverty as in being monetarily poor. It's about the meek, right? The humble stewards of God, so to speak. So don't let poor dissuade you from wanting to be a righteous teacher, right? So it's important for me to emphasize this because our culture, particularly Black people in America, and Black people in America are culturally leading our people around the world, as well as many cultures and ethnicities. But our culture, as far as entertainment is concerned, is being led by 85%ers. And I'm going to pinpoint a couple of those things right now. So a couple of those people during this conversation. So I need for our men to start doing a self-analysis and deciding if you are an 85%er, if you are a 10%er, or if you are a 5%er. And Khalid Muhammad said, and I couldn't find a video, I looked forever, I could not find a video of Khalid Muhammad. If you guys see videos on YouTube that you like, start saving those videos, because they are starting to really, really censor the content that's on YouTube. But Khalid Muhammad said that it's actually 5% of the 5% that are the poor righteous teachers. So if we're looking at 5% of 8 billion people, what does that number actually total out to be? I've never actually done the math, and the question is rhetorical. I'm wondering how close it would be to 144,000. And those of you guys that know, know. But 5% of the 5%. So I'm going to need my brothers to start identifying if you are part of the 85%. It's okay. You don't have to say it publicly. Just do a self-analysis. Deaf, dumb, and blind, easily read in the right direction and hard to be led in the right direction. 10% rich slave masters or bloodsuckers of the poor. And I'm seeing more and more of these Black celebrities starting to show themselves as 10%ers when people in the world are suffering and struggling right now. And the only thing that you can come on social media with tens of millions of followers is to talk about what type of car you have or how much money you have, or throwing money in the sky, or being frivolous with how you represent yourself as far as your responsibility to the whole. We know that there are a lot of people struggling and suffering right now, and a lot of these celebrities are showing themselves, in my opinion, to be 10%ers. All they want to do is get you to purchase something that they're putting out, something that they're representing, support them, love them, like them, share them, and there's no reciprocity when it comes to the masses. Or are you a 5%er? Or are you a 5%er? Are you 5% of the 5%?
Today, brothers and sisters, we are taking on a subject titled Mind Wars. As you and I pretty much know, that anytime the conversation of war is talked about, you always deal generally with land, water, is that right? Yes, sir. Sky, submarine, under the water, yes, desert, jungle, right? Yes, outer space. But very rarely do you hear the subject of war attached to mind. In fact, when you study the Marine Corps' warfare books, the Army's warfare books, they talk generally about 14 different types of war. One, attrition warfare, guerrilla warfare, maneuver warfare, siege warfare, total warfare, trench warfare, conventional warfare, unconventional, asymmetric, counter-insurgency, air, land battle, Cold War, proxy war, but they don't talk about mind wars, at least not in their public documents. But digging a little bit deeper into the warfare stratagem of the United States government, we found down in the Department of Defense U.S. Army Field Manual 33-1, mind wars mentioned in a very slick, subtle way. Did you hear? See, even though they only talk about war on land, war on sea, and war in the sky, there is a whole nother war going on without us even knowing about it. So you'll hear people drop little stuff and they'll say silent weapons for invisible wars. Is that right? You'll hear people talk every now and then about social engineering, information warriors, perception managers, or what we would call opinion gangsters. These are groups of people that do not claim on public record any alliance to any military, yet they are fighting the war without people knowing that they are fighting. So even though in the military papers, they don't talk about mind wars or psychological warfare as one of the chief battle plans. Look deeper down into it. And in the Department of Defense U.S. Army Field Manual 33-1s, there's something called PSYOPs. PSYOPs, which is an abbreviation for psychological operations. Did y'all hear me? The definition, according to the Department of Defense, for psychological operations is any form of communication in support of objectives designed to influence opinions, emotions, attitudes, or behavior of any group in order to benefit the sponsor either directly or indirectly. In other words, even though there's only 14 warfare strategies that are talked about, inside of guerrilla warfare is psyops. Inside of total warfare is psyops. Inside of land, air, and sea warfare, there's a whole nother battle going on that is a psychological battle. And long before they ever drop bombs on people, long before they ever put tanks on the ground, long before they ever engage in ethnic cleansing or genocide, before they ever attack the body or the building of the people that they are at war with, they clash with their minds by sending in information warriors, opinion gangsters, social engineers, perception managers, whose job is to try to turn the people attitude, opinions, emotions, and behavior in a way that they will become their own enemy.
That's Brother Nuri Muhammad. And if you're not familiar with Brother Nuri Muhammad, you definitely need to get acquainted with him. But this was important for me to add this into the conversation, as well as I have a number of brothers that I kind of highlight, just to bring that masculine energy in, to have a balance in the perspective, and to kind of, let you guys hear some men that are basically just saying the same thing that I'm saying, but in their own way. It's funny because I've gotten, into what y'all call beefs. I call it foolishness. With males, I won't even call them men, because I've said things that if a man had said it, it wouldn't have even been a problem. But anyway, Nuri Muhammad is one of my favorite teachers, and you should definitely look him up. But he's talking about mind wars and psyops, and that's important because this is my pyramid from White Lives Matter. This is my, my my contribution, so to speak, to identifying what racism, quote, white supremacy, and I say quote because I do not believe in or adhere to any concept of white supremacy, and I think we need to stop using that language, but just so that we're all on the same page. So this was the pyramid that I put together that just kind of shows us that there's levels to this, and the people that we think we're fighting aren't even the people that we really think we're fighting. And when I say we, I say that tongue in cheek, because I recognize, a few years back how counterproductive it was, the ways in which we were going after, trying to get freedom and liberation as a people. Whatever you're fighting against, you are empowering on a spiritual level, right? So anyway, I don't want to get too deep in that because I want to try to stay on track, and I want to try to stay on time. What Nuri Muhammad is talking about when he's talking about the Department of Defense, when he's talking about mind wars, psyops, psychological warfare, these things are being implemented up here at the top of the pyramid. And these are what we call the elite. Some people call them the Illuminati, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, those really, that small number of white men. There's no black faces at the top of this pyramid, excuse me, that are basically ruling and running the world. And they're right a step above the Warren Buffetts and the Bill Gates and the Jeff Bezos of the world, who have the money but do not have supreme power, so to speak. But at the top of the pyramid, right, these people know that it is not about money, that it is all about energy. And that's why they spend so much time and so much energy keeping you focused on the material world, because they know that the real power is in the immaterial world, which I'm going to get to a little bit later, right? So while I'm seeing a lot of our men in our community, the influencers and the leaders, specifically focusing on money and guns, right? That's the linear masculine approach. But we're moving into the age of Aquarius. So we're moving into a spiritual paradigm. Those things are not going to get you free. They may give you comfort. A gun may protect your household, but it will not protect your mind. Money may afford you to take care of your bills, to buy things that you like. And of course, we're all going for that, right? But money is not going to secure your spirit and your soul. So we've got to change the trajectory of our focus and our emphasis, because we're very limited and linear minded in our conversation and how we're teaching our people, again, divine feminine energy, right? So that we can start to move into a frequency, vibration, and spiritual consciousness, because that's going to be the key to us moving beyond where we are now and what is happening on the planet, and this global judgment that is taking place. So just to kind of do a background on how we got to where we are as far as the male-female dichotomy, this idea that women are the lower self, or not the lower self, that we are somehow inferior, that we are less than, that men are supposed to be ruling our planet or telling us what to do. The only way a man can control a woman is by controlling himself. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, and I can break that down, but maybe I will in a second, but let me just stay on track. So the original sin from the Bible, depending on which Bible you have. Original sin, also called ancestral sin, is a Christian doctrine of a state of sin in which humanity has existed since the fall of man, stemming from Adam and Eve's rebellion in Eden, namely the sin of disobedience in consuming the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And obviously Eve was the one who bit the apple, and she's supposedly the reason for the fall of humanity. I reject this. I rebuke this in the name of Jesus and Imhotep and Allah and Yah and Ra and whatever the universe, whatever your spiritual connotation is, because on a spiritual level, this is beyond gender, right? We are souls here having a human experience, expanding God, allowing God to come and experience the physical realm. So how did we get from this high vibrational consciousness and awareness that is not physical to coming down here and somehow God dividing us into categories where one is greater and one is less than? It doesn't even make sense, right? But this is where a lot of this insanity comes from. In the Holy Quran, Surah 434, men are the protectors and maintainers of women, inasmuch as God has endowed some of people with greater capacity than others, and inasmuch as they spend their wealth. Good, righteous women are the devoted ones, and observant, who guard the secrets. I'm going through this because on the website, they put in parentheses, they put they try to explain it in parentheses, right? Good, righteous women are the devoted ones, and observant, who guard the secrets as God guards and keeps undisclosed. As for those women from whose determined disobedience and breach of their marital obligations you have reason to fear, admonish them, then remain apart from them in beds, then beat, B-E-A-T, them lightly. Then if they obey you, do not seek ways against them. God is indeed all exalted, all great. Again, I rebuke this concept or idea that God has somehow given men permission to lightly beat their women should they get out of line. And in Islam, my last name is Ali. My first name is Hebrew. My last name is Ali. So I grew up in a Muslim culture in the Nation of Islam in Oakland, and still have a great affinity and respect for Islam. And I'm not an anti-religious person, because I recognize that the religion is not a problem. Religion only manifests the issues that we already have lying dormant within. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about Africa and some of the stuff that's happening there and that was happening there prior to the white man coming, which verifies what it is that I'm saying. But at the same time, you know, when we read scriptures, we have to be able to discern what feels righteous, what feels good, and what feels godlike, and what doesn't. In the on the website mquran.org, because I was looking for context and what, you know, Islam, the Muslim thought leaders, so to speak, say about this. And on this particular website, you can see the site there if you want to go and check it out. As a general rule, God has given men greater physical strength than women and endowed them with a greater capacity for management. Pause. If you've ever seen a woman give birth, you know that there is literally no comparison when it comes to physical strength, right? And I always feel weird about this because even when I have to back that up, it seems like I'm comparing. No, I'm just killing this notion that men are have greater physical strength, right? Yes, we have different physical makeups, absolutely, but it balances itself out in when it comes to the nature of what we are both capable of, right? And do I think that God was sitting around like, yeah, I'm gonna make men a little bit physically stronger and I'm gonna give them a greater capability to manage because they're supposed to be the rulers? Hell no, that doesn't even make sense. And let me just pivot a little bit. Let me backtrack. I'm not anti-religious. I've done Ramadan plenty of times. I've studied the Quran backwards and forwards. I read the Bible to this day. I'm not one of those people that thinks that they're, you know, just contrived books and there is no merit in them. No. All of our spiritual books represent the guidance and the consciousness of the people of those times and what is prophesied to come throughout time, right? Throughout history. But it all comes from consciousness, right? And God is here expressing itself through us. So, as a general rule, God has given men greater physical strength than women and endowed them with a greater capacity for management, as the fact that even in the modern world, administrators are usually men proves. Well, if you're going to accept accountability and responsibility for that, then you've got to accept accountability and responsibility for the condition of the world. He has also charged men with the financial responsibility of the family. Again, this is not true to the same degree for all men and women. There will, of course, be some women who are better managers than some men. This is why he has made men the head of the family. However, this does not mean that men have absolute authority in the family. Rather, this authority must be exercised according to the prophetic principle. The master of a people is he who serves them, but responsibility is proportionate to authority, and authority is proportionate to responsibility. Okay, well, I can get with that, but I need men, particularly Muslim men, to help us to emphatically state on the record, regardless to whom or what, that there is absolutely no reason or no justification for putting your hands on women. And if we look at some of the Muslim, I'm not talking about in America, I'm talking about the way that women are treated in Africa and in certain places in the Middle East. And I'm not just talking about hearsay. Like you know what I mean? I talk to and interact with a lot of people around the world. I've talked to and interacted with a lot of women around the world from a lot of different backgrounds and situations. And Muslim women here in America, and some of them are living in pure hell, right? And the Quran is being used to subjugate them, or the Bible is being used in Hebrew Israelite traditions to subjugate women. What kind of God do you serve? What kind of God would tell a man that under certain conditions, it is okay to hit a woman? What kind of God would verify that women were the downfall, or somehow implement concepts or ideologies that women were somehow the downfall of humanity. Now, because I am a student of history, I know this didn't start with religion. And I'm going to show you a clip of Neville Goddard talking about Abdullah, who is his teacher. I'll get into that later, but this is a Orthodox Christian man from Ethiopia. So again, we got to be able to have discernment and not throw the baby out with the bathwater. You got to have discernment. Yep, that sounds righteous to me. No, I'm not going for that. Nah, that don't look cool. That don't feel good. But that right there is wisdom, right? There's so much wisdom in the Bible. There's so much wisdom in the Quran. I have benefited tremendously from both of them. I have benefited tremendously from African history, from African mythology, from the African mystery systems. But there's some shit happening in Africa right now, and that happened back then, that I absolutely reject in the name of Imhotep. Or whatever your great African king or scholar or scribe or priest or priestesses is, right? And let's be clear, if we want to talk about original sins, our men allowed these people to come and do this to us. And they didn't use Islam and they didn't use Christianity to do it. Those things came later, sure, absolutely. But when it all jumped off, the books weren't the excuse. That's why I know once you start looking at things, you understand quantum physics, you understand the building blocks of society, the building blocks of the modern world, then you have to know that we were already off course before the white man ever came to us. We were off course. The energy was off. The vibration was off. The frequency was off. The governance was off. The way we were treating our women was off. This is what allowed these people to come in and do what they did. We got to get out of the space where we're blaming religion and blaming white men for everything. And even before Christianity, let's be clear, there were great women. Ya Asantewa. Her masculine energy had to step up because the men were not doing what needed to be done. If you, the men of Asante, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefields. And now, well, some people will say, well, yeah, that's once, we started going into decline and this was happening and that was happening. And okay. What I'm saying is God equipped women with what was necessary so that when our men fell short or weren't living up to their highest ideals, that we picked up the swords and did what had to be done in order to make sure the ship stayed afloat. Just like in slavery. Do you give us credit for that? Or was she an exception to the rule? Queen Califia, I look like I'm getting red because it's warm in this room. I am definitely getting red. It's warm in this room, but I turned the air off because I'm close to the air and it's kind of loud and I don't want it to mess with my sound. And I have my hard drive attached and I can hear the hard drive. So I don't want it, I'm trying to keep the sound, good. So my face is getting red because I am exuding a lot of energy right now. So if I look like Homie the Clown, my face is getting red. I can see it. So I have to, when I play my next video, I will go and put a cold towel on my face so I can kind of calm myself down a little bit, but I don't want to turn the air on because it's loud. Queen of Califia in the middle was governing the California coast and had control over a very large aspect of that area and was a governor and a ruler unto herself. Pharaoh Hatshepsut, there on your right. Let me drink some water. And I have this sweater on. I don't know what the hell I was thinking about. I'm in California. I'm not in Atlanta. Pharaoh Hatshepsut, who was regarded as a very fair and just leader of her time. She's my greatest historical figure. And she was actually going head to head, struggling with the priests and the men who were in positions of power at that time in Kemet because she was a woman. And a lot of people say, you know, try to mock her because she dressed in male regalia, you know, in order to stake her claim or to represent the visual of what we expect the pharaohs to look like. I'm more keen to think that she was trying her best to keep the conversation off of the fact that she was a woman and focus more on ruling righteously. I remember I was watching a Sonetter debate some time ago, years and years ago, and a brother made mockery of her and said because she wasn't married, that she was the world's first lesbian, which I was very offended by because there's absolutely no evidence of that. And not only because of that, but because this was like a 6-hour event and not one brother came forward and corrected that information and made that, you know, and gave this sister the proper homage that she deserved. And then, of course, down here on your left, you see Asar, Aset, and Heru. And this is where these were the mythological figures. And let me emphasize mythological figures because a lot of us talk about these you know, these symbolic figures as if they actually lived. A lot of the stories that were told through Kemetic history and through many of the indigenous cultures were mythology. And we were supposed to find ourselves in the legend. You know what I mean? Are you more akin to, same thing with the scriptures. Do you identify more with Judas or more with Christ today? Are you being more like Christ, you know what I'm saying? Or more like Judas, your lower self? So anyway, and Set was the brother who ended up coming and cutting up his brother into 12 different pieces. Set went and found his body, brought it back together. They had an immaculate conception. And she ended up giving birth to Heru, which is now eventually became Jesus, et cetera, et cetera. And then Leula Ukulani, who was the last known monarchy in Hawaii, and this was a Black woman, and her down here on your right, and her father and brother, there's actually images of them wearing Moorish regalia on their head. So these were Moors who were ruling Hawaii and came from descendants of Moors or Black people, right, who had rulership over that area prior to Europeans coming in. And, you know, throughout history, men have accosted her, or that's not the word I want to use. She's been judged for not going to war, but she was trying to limit bloodshed. So she gave herself up to keep her people from having to go to war because she didn't want any of her people to die. And, you know, I've seen people say things like, well, that's why men need to be rulers because, you know, sometimes you just have to go to war, et cetera, et cetera. But the question is, how was she ever put in that position? How did they get that close and get in that prime position where she even had to make those choices? And then she ended up being ostracized in her mansion. There's a whole story behind it. Amina Shiketo, the clip, and this is a clip right here, but I'm not going to play it because I want to move this along quickly. But it's on YouTube. There's a couple of videos. Amina Shiketo was a warrior, and she went to war in Nubia. Her actual temple is there in Nubia. And if you guys don't know, there's more temples in the Sudan region than there are actually in Kemet or anywhere in the world. But her temple is there. She went to war and was known as a great fighter and a great leader of her time. Amina Shiketo and Amenorhanes is another one. And sometimes those names are interchanged. I think they may have been the same woman. But anyway, so I just wanted to give some context about the Kandakis, about these great, great, great Black women that preceded religion, just so that we're clear that, you know, it didn't all start with religion. There were great women rulers before religion. There were warriors and scholars prior to religion. And there were also issues in Africa prior to religion. I've talked a couple of times recently about the Moors, right? There were 3 great civilizations that ruled in Spain: the Umayyads, the Almoravids, and the Almohads. And I believe the Almohads was the 3rd one. If I'm wrong, correct me, you guys. I don't have my books here. Stanley Lane Poole wrote a book called The Moors in Spain, which is one of my favorite books. And there's a couple of other ones, but I don't have my books here. So a lot of my information is coming off the internet. But basically, there were three great civilizations of Moorish leaders, and these were Black Arabs and Africans that came together, and that created the Moors, and there were also other, Moroccan, lighter, fairer skin, were Berbers, right? But these were Black people, but they were also, different textures, different phenotypes, different skin tones. But this is our history, right? So I want to bring this up because while they, ran civilized Spain, civilized Europe, great architecture, a lot to be thankful for what these cultures, this culture, this history, these kings brought forward, right? But they also got besides themselves. And there were many times when Nubians, when Kemet and Nubia had to come up to Europe and replace the kings that were in place because they were way too focused. They got comfortable. One of the kings had 5,000 concubines. You know what I mean? Like, and this image you see on the right, there's a lot of images online of concubines. You know what I'm saying? And granted, concubines have a place just like kings have a place, just like queens have a place, etc. But how does a civilization end? How do civilizations destroy themselves? They get comfortable, they get lax, and in my opinion, they start to misdirect the way that they see and approach and handle women, which is all a part of what I'm talking about now. But I'll bring this into context as I go along. So fast forward, LeBron James, and this was the other thing along with Nas that kind of fired me up in my belly, so to speak, to have this conversation with you guys. LeBron James put this post up on Twitter, and this was after the Breonna Taylor situation when they found out about what the officers were going to, the whole situation with trying to get justice for Breonna Taylor, right? He says, "The most disrespected person on earth is the Black woman. I promise you I'll do my best to change this as much as I can and even more. Love to you, queens all over this country and beyond." Now, here's my issue with this. And I believe that LeBron James 100% has righteous intentions. And I know that he got this from Martin Luther King. And I know Malcolm, that clip of Malcolm X talking about the Black woman being the most disrespected person on the planet, right? But now we're in 2020 and we have a boatload of technology and knowledge and information where we can study the spiritual sciences that our ancestors, the Kemetic ancestors, the Dogon, the Mali and Timbuktu and Songhai and the Moors, right, who had a very higher understanding of the spiritual sciences, the power of the mind, the power of frequency, and the power of energy. We have to stop saying this low vibrational, low frequency affirmations. For one, it's not true because your wife isn't disrespected. Nobody's disrespecting your wife. Nobody's disrespecting your daughter. I'm not talking about random trolls or peons on social media. Like your wife, that's not her reality. That's not your mother's reality, right? That's not the women in your environment's reality. Nobody's disrespecting them. Besides the little foolishness that I have to deal with on social media, I move freely with love. I don't deal with people on a day-to-day basis where I get none of that. I move in pure love. I get pure love when people see me, when people recognize me, even people who don't know me. My energy introduces me and sets the tones for the type of interactions that I have. So I 100% rebuke this language. And as a culture and as a people, we need to start rebuking this language and stop saying it. And I know LeBron James had righteous intention. I know he represents and loves Black women, but the paradigm shift, this language has to stop. Because now when we say it and the energy behind it is what actually activates it, right? We're moving things around and making things happen at a much more rapid pace. So who's to say that when you see this or when you hear this, right? Megan Thee Stallion put this up on her. She did some kind of video show and she opened up with Malcolm X and this quote. And then she proceeded to do her whole dance. So you're trying to make a point about respecting Black women, but then you objectify yourself, which eventually leads to more disrespect. That's not how this works. And just to bring some context to, actually, let me go back to this for just a second. We've got to stop using negative affirmations to try to bring justice to ourselves. I can't breathe. That's a negative, low vibrational affirmation. Black Lives Matter. Now, on the surface, it's not really a low vibration affirmation, but when you look at where it came from, I was having a conversation with a friend talking about Haiti, right? And how Haiti won the battle, but they lost the war. Haiti has been under 100% subjugation since that war took place. So in my mind, that tells me what was happening in the minds and the hearts of those women and men who fought at that time. Look at what it produced. Still to this day, there's a difference between fighting a war and fighting for peace, right? So what did it produce? You won the battle, but you lost the war. Look at the condition of Haiti right now and throughout all of this time. So the intention, the energy that started it off is still relative to this day.
Bringing entertainment to thousands of people. Through its magic, we are able to enjoy a combination of the radio, motion pictures, and the stage, right in the comfort of our own home, simply by pushing a button and turning a dial. These cells with their electrical charges are scanned by a stream of electrons, completing 30 pictures a second. Compare that crude picture with these of today, and you can judge for yourself how far along the road to perfection television has traveled.
Most people still today think that all entertainment to do with movies, drama, is therefore nothing more than their entertainment. It never ever was that case.
Of course, television can't perform such miracles as this, yet. But perhaps there's no harm wishing that it could.
The greatest social messages are promoted through movies and drama, high drama, through the fixation of emotive sequences, emotional sequences, not logical, factual sequences, but pushing points across in an emotional way which register and fix in the mind. So emotional content is very, very important, rather than going through an actual discussion or an argument using logic and facts. There's no debates. And when you're being downloaded through fiction, your guard is down. The sensor part of your brain is not in action. It isn't saying, yes, I agree with this, I disagree with that, as you would in a debate or a lecture. You're actually in an alpha state, being completely downloaded with new ideas.
Throughout history, social engineers have refined techniques designed to control large populations.
About 100 years ago, this big organization with many branches, they wanted to rule the world basically using Britain as a nucleus of a system, an embryo, which also was going to be joined with the US under the Anglo-American establishment, wrote about the kind of culture and the changes of culture over a 100-year period that they would actually design, implement, and bring in. And H.G. Wells talked about it too. He talked about arenas. He says arenas could be put up across the world for sports, for instance. Now, at that time, sports was something that children, school children were into. Adults became adults and got onto adult things. So it was unimaginable at the time that people could actually believe that There was even a need for adult sports and entertainment, never mind having arenas built across the world. But he said, we can do this, and foist basically a sports culture for the males using a tribal system. We're all tribal to an extent. That's why we even bother to vote for a tribal leader. This is well understood. That's why we're supplied with these leaders. And because the average man was to become more disengaged from his own destiny as the expert class arose, it was decided that the males would get their outlet, basically, gradually becoming helpless as males through sports. Therefore, they'd have a tribal team they could identify with. They could cheer them on as they were winning. In their own personal lives, they were getting nowhere. They were getting disenfranchised in a sense as experts took over decision-making for them in all kinds of fields. So this was psychology at use, planned before they even implemented the sports.
All right, now, I guess I don't look that red. I do look kind of red. This is my regular skin tone. It's hot in here, but it's all good. I'm working with it. Remember, PSYOPs, right? So for the LeBron James of the world, and I'm specifying LeBron James because I admire and love him dearly, right? But I need you to understand the PSYOPs, right? If you're going to be a leader in our culture, in our community, I need you to understand the levels of what are taking place here, because this is way bigger than just police brutality and racism and injustice, right? Excuse me. And I say that recognizing that I 1000% believe that LeBron James is living out his highest and best self, that he is exercising his God-given talents. All things work for the greater good. So regardless of what the original intention was, you know what I'm saying? Like has superseded the original intention and will probably take care of his family for eons and eons of time to come. But LeBron, I need you to understand that the powers that be literally gave the NBA and Major League Baseball and NFL, when everything else is shut down, right? Nothing else is essential, where people need to get together or not get together, where a specific part of the culture or an infrastructure, such as sports, look at all of the grace and the leniency that was allowed to make sure that people are able to watch sports during this time. And you tell me if what the guy was saying in the video as far as culling people and controlling people and getting men to live vicariously through sports, was it really that important for the NBA season to get finished this year with everything that's happening in the world? You tell me. PSYOPs, mind games, controlling people, the top of the pyramid. This is where we're at right now. The top of the pyramid, how they move, what they do in the middle of a global pandemic, right?
And just trying to figure out why we continue to flounder at the bottom. What is it? And what I found is that it's systems in place, as we all know. It ain't because, we ain't doing what we supposed to do as Black people, because, of course, we all can do better. There's shit that we need to do to clean up ourselves and our community. But besides that shit, the system is fucked up. It's just designed totally. And not only designed, but there's a dedication to keeping us at the bottom of this country. And I don't know if we can count on any parties to get us about the shit, to be honest. So we are gonna have to do a lot of things different as a Black community. We have to pool our resources. We have to think about ourselves. You know, we love all the other races of the world, but at some point we got to figure out how do we get ahead, because everybody's on top of us, but us, or everybody's on top of us. And shit ain't gonna work. We ain't gonna survive this the way it's going.
Nope. Nope. With all due respect, and let me bring myself up. With all due respect, Ice Cube, and I love you, and I grew up on your music, and I grew up on your movies, and my son, and we love you. And first of all, I am super, super, super proud of you for trying to step in and say and do what other people want. The fact that you are taking the type of heat that you're taking and using your platform to try to talk about something greater than yourself and greater than Birkin bags and throwing money around and talking about what you have and what you've accomplished, like 100% kudos. And I rebuke all of these new age, millennial minded, I'm not millennial minded people that think that you can cancel somebody that's as iconic as Ice Cube. No, absolutely not. With that said, first thing you said, we ain't doing what we supposed to do, but fuck all that. Wrong. That's not the way the universe works. You cannot expect somebody else to treat you or to do something, but do right by you when you won't even do it for yourself. Hip hop, particularly Black men in rap and in hip hop, let me bring myself forward. You need to atone. You need to atone for the way that you have treated and continue to treat women. And this is not specifically to Cube, because Cube is one of those rare rappers that didn't really use his artistry to disrespect women, even though he was, NWA did. But I'm talking about as he went off into his solo career, when I think back on it, Cube doesn't really resonate with that frequency to me, right? But hip hop and rap artists, you need to atone. Men, you need to atone for the platforms that you've built and the money that you've made and the success that you've gained on the backs of disrespecting our women. That's your responsibility. The second thing he said was, we're not going to survive this. No. If you speak like that, you are not qualified to be a leader in our community, because thoughts and words and energy and frequency creates reality. So if you say that and then 5 million people agree with you and then 50,000 people share that shit, now you're sending it off into the ether, projecting some shit that will come down on us next year or January or December or whenever. No, if you speak like that, you are disqualified from being a leader in our community. Well, who are you, ZaZa, to tell Ice Cube that he's disqualified from being a leader in our community? I didn't say he was disqualified. I said, if you speak like that, Cube probably will never hear this. He probably has no, I would venture to say he's never had anybody speak to him like this. So the people in his corner, the people who have access to him, it's your responsibility to relay this message for me. And I'm setting a tone for how we interact with one another. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. We all have free will. Do your shit, live your life as you choose. But I'm trying to set standards and change the trajectory of how we think, because we keep bringing this shit on ourselves without even realizing it. That language is inappropriate. The same way you call women bitches and hoes, not Cube, but rappers. The same way you call women bitches and hoes and represent a certain type of image in your videos that doesn't have anything to do with how your mother looks or your daughter looks or your aunties look. And you go crazy if you saw your daughter split her ass on a pole, but you constantly represent those type of women to our culture, to our daughters, that don't necessarily have men in their lives that are helping them to put this shit in context, but you expect the white man to treat to treat Black women in a way that you don't. That's not how this works. In his book, Brainwashed by Tom Burrell, he said one of the most prevalent images of Black women in antebellum America was a person governed almost entirely by her libido, a Jezebel character. In every way, Jezebel was the counter image of the mid-19th century ideal of the Victorian lady. She did not lead men and children to God. Piety was foreign to her. She saw no advantage in prudery, instead domestically paled in importance before matters of the flesh. These are the type of women that our men are promoting now. And I'm not talking about, I've already talked about women and their responsibility. I'm gonna keep talking about it, but let's stay on subject. She did not lead men and children to God. Where are the women in our culture that are most prevalent leading men and children? I've been so disappointed with some of the women, and I'm not going to call out their name because I don't want to sidetrack the conversation, but I've been so disappointed with some of the women that I thought were cultural and African and spiritual and had all this knowledge and dropped jewels in their music, and they got millions of followers and ain't talking about shit. And y'all keep promoting this and making us think that it's cool and it's acceptable, because we know that women, what we want your attention. We want your love. We want your adoration. So I need the Cubes of the world and the LeBrons of the world, right? And maybe not even so much of them, because I feel like their wives and their daughters, you know what I'm saying, kind of bridge the gap, so to speak. But hip hop and rap in general, men in general, stop co-signing this corny shit. Concubines rule in our culture now. Our daughters want to be strippers. This is from a website, Ferris University. They have this great composite of these images of Black culture throughout time, throughout history, right? The Jezebel. And if you look at what our daughters, we grew up on certain aspects of this. Look at what our daughters are growing up on now. Your daughters. Talking to the men watching, the young men watching that are gonna have daughters. You picking and choosing the type of woman that you're gonna have a seed by. You can't have a seed, you have a child by a Amber Rose and then expect her to become Claire Huxtable. That's not how this works. In her book, The ISIS Papers, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing breaks down the symbolic elements of the gun and how the gun is the white man's psychological equalizer to his fear of genetic annihilation of the Black man. And specifically, obviously, Black women can genetically annihilate in terms of having a child with an Asian or a white man, and that child being a mixed child, which is going to be a dominant, take on the dominant genetic attributes of Black, right? The dominant gene. So she talks about the fact that white men have created weapons, i.e. the missile and the gun, right? That speak to his inferiority complex of the Black man's genital abilities to genetically annihilate. And obviously men are the aggressors when it comes to sex. So that's why the emphasis is on men, right? Now here's the catch-22, because now our men are telling us that we have to take on guns in order to combat this coming race war that we're in or we've been in, right?